3 weeks ago, I was found unconscious on the floor of my home office at 2:14 in the morning. Traumatic brain injury from a fall. The paramedics told my neighbour, who'd heard the crash through the shared wall of our duplex in Mississauga, that another 20 minutes and I wouldn't have made it. My mother got the call at 2:40 a.m. By 4:15, she was at Credit Valley Hospital. By 9:30 the same morning, she decided my brother's engagement party in Banff couldn't wait. By 10:45 a.m., my entire family was on the highway heading to the airport. I spent 9 days in the ICU alone, or so I thought. When I finally woke up, the nurse handed me the visitor log on a tablet. One name appeared every single night, a name I had never heard before in my 31 years of life. A man who had signed in every evening, who had sat in the hallway outside my room for hours, who had, I later found out, walked into the billing office on day 3 and paid my entire outstanding balance, $94,000 in hospital fees, by direct wire transfer, then asked the staff to keep his identity confidential. My mother's face, when she came back and saw that name on the log, told me everything she had buried for 29 years. Sunday at 7 p.m. was always the call. Not because my mother missed me. Not because she wanted to hear about my week. Sunday at 7 p.m. was when she called to go through the list. The property tax on the house came in, she said, her voice carrying the particular warmth she reserved for asking. It's $4,200 this quarter, and your brother's photographer for the engagement party needs a deposit, another $800. Oh, and the car insurance renewal. That's $400. I know it's a lot, but you know how tight things are. I did the math while she talked. $6,400, on top of the $200 I already transferred on the first of every month. Mom, that's nearly $600 this month. You don't have a mortgage, she said, and I could hear her shifting the phone to her other ear. You don't have children. Your brother is getting engaged. This is a big moment for this family. You make good money, sweetheart. What else are you spending it on? I wanted to say, my RRSP that I haven't touched in 2 years because I keep emptying it. My emergency fund that doesn't exist anymore. The down payment I've been trying to save for since I was 26 and keep watching disappear. But I said, I'll transfer it tonight. Before 9, if you can. The photographer needs confirmation. After she hung up, I opened the spreadsheet I'd kept since my first job out of university. 6 years of records. Every e-transfer, every Interact payment, every time I'd wired money to cover something that was never my responsibility. I scrolled to the total at the bottom, $163,000. I earn $98,000 a year as a logistics coordinator at a pharmaceutical distributor in Mississauga. After taxes and CPP and EI, I take home about $72,000. I'd been sending home an average of $27,000 a year for 6 years. That's more than a third of my net income. Gone. I scrolled through the reason column. My brother's first car. My brother's collision repair when he hit a guardrail and didn't want to go through insurance. My brother's rent deposit when he moved to Calgary. My brother's trip to Mexico for a bachelor party. That wasn't even his. My brother's new furniture. My brother's dental work that he didn't get around to for 3 years and then needed emergency crowns. Nearly 80% of the entries had his name in the reason column. My phone buzzed. A text from my brother. A photo of a venue in Banff. Stone fireplace, mountain view. The kind of place where people spend more on a single dinner than I spend on groceries in a month. Isn't it unreal? She found it on Instagram. We're thinking $35,000 for the full wedding. Mom said you'd help anchor the budget since you don't have expenses like we do. Maybe $12,000? You're the maid of honor, so it makes sense you'd contribute more. $12,000. I stared at the message for a long time, then I typed, I'll see what I can do. He sent back a thumbs up. The pressure at work had been building for months before everything collapsed. Our regional VP had left without notice in January, and my director had redistributed his entire file list across the team. Compliance audits, carrier contract renewals, regulatory submissions for 3 new product lines. All of it landed on my desk because, as my director kept saying, I was the only one who could handle the volume without dropping something. I was working from home most nights until midnight. I had a standing desk I never stood at because I never had time to adjust it. I was eating toast for dinner because cooking felt like a luxury I couldn't afford time-wise. My doctor had flagged my blood pressure at my last physical 6 months earlier. You need to find a way to decompress, she'd said. These numbers are not normal for someone your age. I hadn't gone back since. The night it happened, I was finishing a carrier compliance report due at 8 a.m. My head had been pounding for 2 days. I'd written it off as tension. Maybe it's a sinus thing, maybe just the way February felt in Ontario. I reached for my water bottle at 2:09 a.m. and my hand went to the wrong side of the desk. I tried again. My fingers felt like they belonged to someone else. The words on my screen started sliding sideways. I thought, I should call someone. I stood up, the floor came up to meet me, then nothing. My neighbour heard the crash. She had a spare key because I watered her plants when she travelled. She found me at 2:14, called 911, and I was in the ambulance by 2:22. The emergency contact listed on my health card was my mother. The hospital called at 2:40 a.m. No answer, again at 3:15 a.m. No answer. Again at 3:50 a.m. No answer. At 4:10 a.m. she picked up. I don't remember any of the first night. I only know what the nurses told me later. My mother arrived at Credit Valley at 4:15 a.m. My father arrived 20 minutes behind her. My brother and his fiancée drove in from downtown Toronto and got there by 6:30. They stayed for 40 minutes total. My brother sat in the family waiting area scrolling his phone. My father made calls in the parking garage. My mother spoke to the attending physician for 8 minutes. Then she came into my room, looked at me, oxygen mask, IV lines, monitors doing their job, and checked her watch. They left at 9:30 a.m. The nurse who was on that shift, a woman named Renata, who had been in critical care for 14 years, told me what she overheard my mother say on the phone in the hallway before they left. The doctor said she's stable. We can still make the afternoon flight. The hotel deposit is non-refundable. Your sister paid for it. A pause. I know it looks bad, but this is your engagement, sweetheart. This is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. She's stable. Stable means she's not getting worse, right? She would understand. She's always been the steady one. The doctor had actually said, stable, but we need to watch her for 72 hours minimum. There are secondary risks we haven't ruled out yet. My mother heard stable. She left the rest on the floor. At 11:47 a.m., while I lay unconscious in room 318, my mother left me a voicemail. I listened to it 8 days later when I could finally hold a phone without my hands shaking. 17 seconds. Hi, sweetheart, the doctor said. You're going to be okay. So your father and I are going to Banff with your brother and Cassidy like we planned. The hotel is already paid for. I'll check in with the nurses every day. You just rest. We'll be back by Thursday. Your brother needs us for this. She didn't say she was sorry. She didn't say she loved me. She said my brother needed her. Then she hung up. At 1:22 p.m., while I was being moved for additional imaging, because my pressure was spiking, my brother posted a reel from YZ Departures. My mother in a travel blazer. My father with his carry-on. My brother and Cassidy in the middle, laughing, countdown graphic over the video. Banff or bust. Engagement season officially begins. 148 people watched that video in the first 2 hours, including one person none of them expected. At 6:45 p.m. that evening, a man walked into Credit Valley Hospital through the main entrance on Erin Mills Parkway. He went to the front desk and asked for room 318. Camille Okafor, he said. The receptionist confirmed she had a patient by that name. Are you family? Yes. His name, he said, was Hugh Carmichael. He was given a visitor badge. He took the elevator to the 3rd floor, walked to the end of the hall, and stopped outside my room. He didn't knock. He didn't ask a nurse to go in. He stood there at the glass panel beside the door for 2 hours and 40 minutes. The hallway camera caught everything. 6:45 p.m. A man in a dark jacket, grey at the temples, maybe 62 or 63, stops outside room 318. Stands still. 7:10 p.m. Hasn't moved. A nurse approaches him. He shakes his head gently. She leaves. 8:30 p.m. He's sitting now in the chair against the wall. His eyes don't leave the glass. 9. He stands again. He puts his hand flat against the panel for a long moment. Then he steps back. 9:25 p.m. He walks away. Renata was the nurse who approached him at 7:48. Can I help you? Do you need to go in? He shook his head. No. I just need to know she's not alone. She asked if he'd like to sign the visitor log. He nodded. She handed him the tablet. He wrote Hugh Carmichael. Then he went back to standing at the glass. Renata told me later, I've worked this unit for 14 years. I've seen every kind of family you can imagine. I've never seen someone stand outside a glass panel for almost 3 hours, like they were asking permission from the air to go inside. He came back the next evening at 6:30. Same jacket. He brought a book this time. Paperback, worn spine. He sat in the hallway chair and read. Every few minutes he'd look up toward my room, then back down. At 8:15, he closed the book. He stood up. He walked to the door. This time he went in. Renata watched through the glass from the nursing station. He moved the visitor chair to the side of my bed. He didn't touch me. He looked at my face for a long time. Then he said something. She couldn't hear it through the glass. Later she asked him what he'd said. He just smiled, quiet, pained, and shook his head. He stayed for 51 minutes, then he left. Renata made a note in my chart. Visitor Hugh Carmichael. Self-identifies as family. Stated my daughter when entering. Unable to reach emergency contact to verify. Follow up with next of kin. She tried calling my mother 3 times over the next 2 days. Voicemail each time. She pulled up my visitor log. November 14th, November 15th, November 16th, November 17th, November 18th. Every night. Hugh Carmichael. No Renee Okafor. No Bernard Okafor. No Darius Okafor. Just one name. A man no one in my family had ever mentioned. On the morning of November 17th, my attending physician ordered new scans. Something wasn't resolving the way it should. The swelling in my brain had decreased, but there was a new concern. Elevated cardiac enzymes, pointing to stress cardiomyopathy, a condition where extreme physical and psychological strain causes a part of the heart to temporarily malfunction. It had been triggered by the trauma of the fall and the weeks of chronic overwork leading up to it. We need to perform a procedure, the cardiologist told Renata. If we don't address this in the next 36 hours, the risk of a secondary cardiac event is significant. The procedure would cost $38,000. They needed family consent and a partial payment to schedule. Renata called my mother's number for the 6th time. This time, someone's answered. Background noise. Wind voices. The sound of an outdoor patio. Mrs. Okafor, this is Renata calling from Credit Valley Hospital. I'm the nurse assigned to your daughter, Camille. There's been a complication. She needs a cardiac procedure. We need your consent and a deposit of $12,000 before we can book the OR. Silence. How much is the full procedure? $38,000, but your daughter's provincial coverage will offset a portion. Can she not use her extended benefits? She has a good job. Mrs. Okafor, your daughter is unconscious. She can't authorize anything right now. A pause. In the background, I could hear what sounded like my brother's laugh, the clink of something glass. Can you email me the consent form? I'll sign it digitally. As for the money, send the invoice to her home address. She has savings. Camille has always been responsible about that. Renata told me she had to put the phone down for a moment and breathe before she could respond. Your daughter is in critical care. She cannot pay her own hospital bills while she is in a medically induced state. I'm sure her benefits cover most of it. Just do what you need to do. She'll sort out the paperwork when she's better. The line went quiet. 40 minutes later, across the city, a man named Hugh Carmichael received a call from someone at the hospital. Not Renata, but someone in the administrative wing who had found his name as the only consistent visitor on record and took a chance. He answered on the second ring. Mr. Carmichael, I'm calling about Camille Okafor in room 318. She needs a cardiac procedure. Her family is currently out of province and is having difficulty arranging the deposit. I'm not sure why I'm calling you, honestly. Your name was the only one. How much does she need? The full outstanding balance, including the procedure, would be $94,000. Give me your direct line. He hung up. Then he called his bank. The woman in the hospital's billing department, a coordinator who had been doing this work for 11 years, had processed a lot of unusual payments. But at 3:15 p.m. that day, she watched a wire transfer arrive. $94,000 from Carmichael Group Holdings to Credit Valley Hospital. Memo, full settlement, patient Camille Okafor, room 318. Donor identity to remain confidential. Do not disclose to patient or family at this time. She pulled up my file, emergency contact. Renee Okafor. Mother, she called the number on the wire transfer. A man answered. This is Hugh Carmichael. Mr. Carmichael, I'm calling to confirm your payment for patient Camille Okafor. Confirmed. I need to verify your relationship to the patient for our records. A pause. Family, can you be more specific? Our records show the patient's father is Bernard Okafor. A longer pause. There's more than one kind of father, he said. Please make sure she gets the procedure she needs. I'd prefer she not know who paid. Not yet. The line went dead. The billing coordinator sat back. She looked at the transfer confirmation. Then she looked out her window toward the ICU wing. In the hallway outside room 318, she could see a man sitting alone. Dark jacket, grey at the temples, watching the glass. That man, she thought, is the only family that girl has right now. My mother texted me a photo from Banff while I was unconscious. I found it on my phone 8 days later when I woke up. A mountain in the background, all of them smiling, the caption, "Thinking of you, rest up." She sent it at 7:43 p.m. On the third day I was in the ICU, the same night Hugh Carmichael sat in the chair beside my bed and said something I couldn't hear. I woke up on a Thursday, white ceiling, fluorescent lights, the particular sound of hospital monitors, steady, indifferent, keeping score. I turned my head. The chair beside my bed was empty. No flowers, no balloons, no card, no one sleeping at an uncomfortable angle. On the bedside table, a full glass of water, a small bag of roasted almonds from a shop I didn't recognize, and a book I had never seen before, Educated by Tara Westover. Hardcover, used but well kept, a small library sticker on the spine, the kind that gets left behind even after deaccession. I didn't own this book. I'd never borrowed it. Renata came in to check my vitals. When she saw my eyes open, she stopped, then smiled. The kind of smile that meant something real. There you are, she said. How long? 9 days. You had a brain bleed from the fall, and then a secondary cardiac complication. You had a procedure on day 4. You're going to be okay. 9 days. Where's my family? Renata adjusted my IV. They're in Alberta. They'll be back tomorrow. They didn't come back, no. I looked at the ceiling, then at the table, the book, the water. Where did those come from? Renata sat down the blood pressure cuff. A man. He came every night while you were unconscious. What man? He said he was your father. I looked at her. My father is in Banff. Not Bernard Okafor, a different man. He gave a different name. She picked up the tablet from the nursing station and brought it to me. He signed the log every night, you can see. My hands were unsteady. I took the tablet anyway. November 14. Hugh Carmichael, 6:45 p.m. to 9:25 p.m. November 15. Hugh Carmichael, 6:30 p.m. to 9:47 p.m. November 16. Hugh Carmichael, 7 p.m. to 10:15 p.m. November 17. Hugh Carmichael, 6:15 p.m. to 11 p.m. November 18. Hugh Carmichael, 6:45 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. November 19. Hugh Carmichael, 7 p.m. to 11:20 p.m. No Renee Okafor, no Bernard Okafor, no Darius Okafor. Just one name, every single night. Who is Hugh Carmichael? I whispered. Renata looked at me with an expression I couldn't fully read. He said he was your father. I borrowed Renata's personal iPad. My hands were still weak, but I managed to type. Hugh Carmichael, Toronto. The results loaded. My heart did something strange. Hugh Carmichael, 61. Founder and chairman of Carmichael Group Holdings, a mid-market private equity firm headquartered in Toronto's financial district. Assets under management, approximately $1.3 billion. He had a Wikipedia page. There was a photo, grey at the temples, dark jacket, a slight smile that didn't reach his eyes all the way. Photographed outside a glass office building at King and Bay. I looked at that photo for a long time. Grey eyes, lighter than I'd expect. I have grey eyes. My mother has dark brown eyes. My father, Bernard, has dark brown eyes. My brother has dark brown eyes. I had asked my mother about my eyes when I was 15, a throwaway question over dinner. She had gone completely still. You got them from somewhere on my side, she said. Don't make everything a thing. I had never asked again. I kept searching. Carmichael Group Foundation. I found a scholarship page. Recipients by year listed alphabetically. I scrolled. 2015. Camille A. Okafor, Ryerson University, 2016. Camille A. Okafor, Ryerson University, 2018. Camille A. Okafor, York University Schulich School of Business, Certificate in Supply Chain Management. My scholarship, the one that came through in my second year of university. No interview, no essay prompt. An email from a foundation administrator saying I had been identified as a qualifying recipient based on academic profile and financial circumstance. No further explanation. My mother, when I told her, said, "Don't let it go to your head, you got lucky." That's all it was. Lucky. I looked at the book on the bedside table. I picked it up and opened the cover. On the inside front page, in careful handwriting, "For my daughter, may you always know you were never as alone as you thought." The room blurred. I called my director at work. I didn't have any other number I needed more in that moment. He answered immediately, relieved, asking how I felt, telling me not to think about work. Then I asked him one question: who funded us in 2020? The bridge round. Before the Series A. Silence. Camille. Why? Carmichael Group. Was it Carmichael Group? A longer silence. Yes. Did Hugh Carmichael request anything specific? My director exhaled slowly. He asked to stay anonymous. He asked to be kept informed if anything happened to any staff members. A pause. He called me the morning you were found. Before I even knew which hospital. Before he knew. Before anyone who was supposed to love me knew. I closed my eyes. My mother walked into Credit Valley on Friday morning. I wasn't there to see her arrive, but Renata was, and she told me everything. My mother was wearing the kind of relaxed linen outfit that said she had been somewhere warm. She had a Banff Avenue gift bag in her hand. She walked straight to the front desk. Camille Okafor, room 318. I need to arrange discharge. The receptionist pulled up my file. Of course. Let me just check the account status before we proceed. My mother frowned slightly. What account status? Whatever isn't covered by her insurance, send to her home address. She'll handle it. Ma'am, the account has been settled in full. There's no remaining balance. My mother went still. What do you mean settled? By who? I'm not authorized to disclose that information. The payment was made anonymously. Anonymously. She repeated the word like it was in a foreign language. No one in this family has that kind of money. Let me see the visitor log. Who's been coming to see her? The receptionist hesitated, then handed over the tablet. My mother scrolled through it. November 14. Hugh Carmichael, November 15. Hugh Carmichael, November 16. Hugh Carmichael, November 17. Hugh Carmichael, November 18. Hugh Carmichael, November 19. Hugh Carmichael. No Renee Okafor. No Bernard Okafor. No Darius Okafor. The tablet dropped out of my mother's hands and hit the floor. She didn't pick it up. The receptionist told me later it was like watching someone receive news they'd always known was coming and had spent 29 years trying to outrun. My mother walked to the elevator. Third floor, she turned the corner and stopped. Sitting in the hallway chair outside room 318 was Hugh Carmichael. He looked up, their eyes met, 29 years. He stood slowly. He didn't move toward her, he just waited. Hugh. Her voice came out like something cracked down the middle. He didn't speak for a moment. Then, 29 years, Renee. 29 years I watched from the outside. I was at her university convocation in the upper level of the mezzanine. I watched her walk across that stage, and I couldn't tell a single person in that building who I was to her. His voice was low, controlled, the kind of control that costs something. I paid for her education because it was the only thing I was allowed to do. I invested in her company because it was the only way I could be near her. And when she was in that room, he gestured toward the glass. I came every night. Because someone had to. My mother opened her mouth. Nothing came out. You were in Banff, he said. Not accusing, stating, like a record, your daughter paid for that trip. Your daughter, while she was in a medically induced state, had her hospital bills paid by the man you told her didn't exist. And you were picking up souvenir bags on Banff Avenue. I didn't know it was this serious. You knew she needed surgery. The nurse called you. You told her to send the bill to Camille's address because she makes good money. He shook his head. I stayed away for 29 years because I believed you when you said she had a family, that she was loved, that disrupting her life with the truth would hurt her. He looked at my mother the way you look at something you've made peace with grieving. I was wrong. She didn't have a family. She had people who treated her like a resource. He turned and walked toward my room. My mother was still standing in the hallway when he pushed open the door. I was sitting up against the pillows, iPad in my lap, when the door opened. He stopped in the middle of the room, about 10 feet from the bed, close enough that I could see the grey of his eyes clearly, the same grey as mine. Neither of us spoke. The monitors beeped. Somewhere down the hall, a phone rang twice and went quiet. I don't know where to begin, he said finally. His voice was deeper than I expected. Steady, but with something underneath it, like a foundation that had been stressed for a very long time. Start with the hallway, I said. The first night. Why didn't you come in? He was quiet for a moment, because I didn't know if I had the right. He looked at his hands. I've been watching you from the outside for 29 years. Your grade 8 graduation, I drove past the school. Your convocation, I sat in the upper section. When you got the Schulich certificate, I followed the program online. Every milestone's always outside, always behind the glass. He looked up. The first night here, when I saw you through that panel, the machines, the tubes, so still, I thought, this is my daughter, and I don't even know if she'd want me in the same room, but you came back. I couldn't not come back. I looked at the book on the table. The scholarship. That was you. Yes, 2015. I'd only confirmed everything that year. I hired a private investigator when I could no longer make myself stay away. I got the DNA confirmation, and I didn't know how to reach you without blowing up your life. So I did the only thing I was allowed to do from a distance. I made sure money wasn't the reason you couldn't finish your degree. And the investment in my company, OBA 2020. When I saw your name attached to that logistics firm, I called them the next week. Not because I thought the company was exceptional, though it has been, but because it was the only door I could legally walk through. I thought about that for a long time. You could have stayed away when I was here. You could have let my mother deal with it. He looked at me steadily. Your mother was on a patio in Banff, and you were in a room by yourself. I have been many things in my life that I'm not proud of, but I was not going to let that stand. Who are you? I asked, not rhetorically. I genuinely needed to hear him say it. I'm your father, he said, and then, quieter, I know that doesn't mean much yet. I know I haven't been here in the way that counts. I know Bernard raised you, whatever that looked like. I'm not trying to replace anything. I'm just... He paused. I'm done standing outside the glass. I thought about the spreadsheet on my laptop at home. $163,000 over 6 years. Every request, every emergency, every time my mother called on Sunday at 7 p.m. and I said yes, because saying no felt like losing the only family I thought I had. I thought about the voicemail, 17 seconds. Your brother needs me. I thought about Hugh Carmichael standing in a hospital hallway for 2 hours and 40 minutes because he wasn't sure he had the right to knock. Will you sit down? I said. He walked forward. He sat in the chair beside my bed, the same chair that had been empty for 9 days. The monitors kept their rhythm. Outside, the hospital kept doing what hospitals do, moving people through the machinery of crisis, sending some of them back into their lives, keeping others a little longer. In room 318, for the first time in 29 years, we were on the same side of the glass. I was discharged on a Tuesday. Hugh drove me home to my apartment in Mississauga. We didn't talk much. There wasn't a rush. We had a lot of dinners ahead of us. We had time. My mother came to see me the weekend after I got home. I let her in because I hadn't fully decided anything yet, and I think I needed to hear her say it herself. She sat at my kitchen table. She looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with the flight from Alberta. It was 1995, she said. I was 24. Hugh was nobody then, a junior analyst at a small firm. No money, no stability, no family in this country. We were together for 8 months. Then his firm seconded him to Calgary. A 2-year posting, no warning, just gone. She looked at her hands. I found out I was pregnant 3 weeks after he left. I didn't have his number in Calgary. I didn't have anything. And your father, Bernard. We had been close before Hugh. He was there. He had a stable job. He had a house. He wanted to build something. So you chose security. I chose survival. Her voice cracked. You don't know what it was like. I was 24 years old and alone, and I made a decision with what I had in front of me. When did Hugh find out about me? She was quiet for a moment. He came back, 2 years later. By then you were 14 months old and I was married. I told him you were Bernard's. I told him there was nothing to discuss. I told him if he contacted me again I would make things very difficult for him. And he stayed away. For a long time. Then, I don't know how, maybe 12 years ago, he found a way to confirm what he suspected. He came to me through a lawyer. He wanted to meet you. I told him you had a father. I told him it would destroy your stability. I told him it was too late. I looked at her for a long time. Every Sunday at 7 p.m. I said, you called to tell me what you needed, what my brother needed, what the family needed. 6 years, $163,000. And when I was in that hospital, you signed a consent form from a patio in Banff and told the nurse to send the bill to my address. She started to speak. There was a man, I said, who stood outside my room for almost 3 hours on the first night because he wasn't sure he deserved to come in. He paid for my education without telling me. He invested in my company just to be near me. He paid $94,000 to a hospital billing department and asked them not to tell me his name. My voice was steadier than I expected. And you were buying souvenirs, Camille. I spent 6 years trying to earn something from you that was never on offer, I said. I paid your bills. I funded your trips. I kept saying yes because I thought that was what love looked like. Proving yourself, making yourself useful, never asking for anything back. I shook my head. I'm done earning it. She left without saying goodbye. The door closed quietly behind her. I sat in my kitchen for a while after that, listening to the apartment be still. Then I called Hugh. He answered on the second ring. Do you want to get coffee? I said. The pause on his end lasted about 3 seconds, and I could hear everything in it. Yes, he said. I really do. My brother's engagement party in Banff went ahead without the $12,000 I never sent. The wedding they'd been planning fell apart in the spring when the venue deposit came due, and no one had the money to cover it, and instead of scaling down, Cassidy's parents decided the circumstances weren't what they'd imagined, and the engagement quietly dissolved by April. My mother called me 3 times in 1 week. I let the calls go to voicemail. Bernard, my father, the man who raised me, called me once on a Tuesday evening in March. He didn't say much. He said he'd known for years that something didn't quite add up, that he'd never been able to put his finger on what was missing, and now he knew. He wasn't angry. He sounded like someone who had been carrying a question for a long time, and finally had the answer, even if it wasn't the one he'd wanted. I'm sorry I wasn't there more, he said. You deserve better from all of us. I told him I didn't blame him, I meant it. He had been lied to the same as I had, just from a different angle. Hugh and I met for coffee that first time at a place in Distillery District, a Tuesday afternoon in late November. It was awkward in the specific way that honest things often are. We didn't know each other's coffee order, didn't know the rhythm of each other's silences, didn't know whether to hug when we arrived or just sit down. We just sat down. He brought the photograph. He had mentioned it and I'd asked to see it. A woman I didn't recognize, mid-20s, dark hair, laughing at something happening off to the left. The colour had shifted slightly from age, the way printed photographs do. I took that in October of 1995, he said, 2 weeks before I left for Calgary. He held it by the edge, the way you hold something you don't want to damage further. She was laughing at something, my roommate said. I don't even remember what, but I've spent 29 years trying to remember, because I've looked at this photo that many times. He put it back in his wallet. I didn't find her again, he said. She moved on, I understand that, but I found something I wasn't expecting. He looked at me across the table. I found you, and I think that might be better. People will tell you that family is family, that blood is thicker, that you owe the people who raised you, that loyalty means staying no matter what. I believed that for 31 years. I paid $163,000 to prove it. The people who share my last name left me alone in a hospital room for 9 days while they attended an engagement party. They signed a consent form from a resort patio and told the nurse I'd sort out the billing when I was feeling better. A man I had never met stood in a hospital hallway at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night because he didn't know if he was allowed to knock on the door. He paid for my education and never asked for a thank you. He funded my company from a distance and never introduced himself. He paid $94,000 to a hospital billing department and asked them to keep his name off the record. I've been thinking about what family actually is. I don't think it's the people who were there at the beginning. I think it's the people who show up on the 9th night, when you're still unconscious, when there's no reason to be there, except that they need to make sure you're not alone. I'm not saying I have it figured out. Hugh and I are still learning what Tuesday afternoon coffee looks like. We're still figuring out whether we call or text, what we talk about, where the edges are. But I know this. I spent 31 years standing outside a door, asking to be let in, paying for the right to belong. I'm not doing that anymore. The door I was standing outside was the wrong one all along.